There are moments on morning television that catch you completely off guard, not because of breaking news or dramatic interviews, but because of something far quieter. A shift in tone, a pause that lingers a little too long, a presenter stepping outside the usual rhythm of the show to say something genuinely personal. That's exactly what happened when Ben Shephard spoke openly about his wife Annie, and the moment viewers noticed it, the conversation started almost immediately. Ben Shephard is someone British television audiences have grown comfortable with over the years. He has that quality, warm, steady, reliably present, the kind of presenter you trust almost without realizing you've decided to. So when he steps out from behind that professional composure, even briefly, people pay attention in a different way. Not as viewers watching a host, but as people suddenly reminded that the person on screen is carrying something real. What he shared wasn't dramatic in the theatrical sense. He wasn't breaking down. He wasn't speaking in crisis. But there was something in the way he described Annie as really struggling that landed differently than polished televised sympathy tends to. It felt specific. It felt personal. And many viewers watching picked up on that distinction almost instantly. Because there's a texture to genuine worry that performance simply cannot replicate. And whether audiences consciously identified it or not, something about his delivery suggested this wasn't a rehearsed update. This was a husband talking about his wife, and the weight behind that was quietly visible to anyone paying close attention. The injury itself has been a storyline that followers of Ben's life outside the studio have been tracking for some time. But updates like this one, where the human cost of recovery is acknowledged rather than minimized, have a way of reframing the entire conversation. It almost seemed as though Ben was offering viewers a moment of honesty that went beyond what a brief segment might typically contain. Some people watching felt that the choice to describe the situation so directly was a form of trust extended to the audience. A quiet acknowledgement that the people at home deserved to know the truth of how things were going. And viewers responded to that. Social media conversations began reflecting something that goes beyond celebrity interest or entertainment curiosity. People were expressing genuine concern, not just for Ben as a public figure, but for Annie, for their family, for the kind of invisible strain that long-term injury recovery places on everyone surrounding the person going through it. That particular dimension of the story, the effect on a partner, on a household, on the emotional architecture of a relationship, rarely gets discussed with this kind of honesty on morning television. And perhaps that's part of why the moment resonated as widely as it did. There's a tendency in television culture to present recovery narratives in a certain shape. The initial incident, the difficulty, the turning point, the triumphant return. It's a familiar arc and it offers audiences comfort. But what Ben described doesn't fit neatly into that structure. Because really struggling doesn't point toward resolution. It points toward the middle of something, the long, unglamorous stretch where progress is uncertain and the people you love are still not okay yet. That kind of honesty is rarer than it should be, and viewers online interpreted the moment as something worth paying attention to for exactly that reason. Watch Ben in those kinds of moments and you notice how carefully he carries himself. There's no performance of vulnerability, which is actually what makes genuine vulnerability so readable when it does surface. His voice doesn't crack, he doesn't reach for dramatic effect. But there's a quietness in the way he speaks about Annie that communicates something words don't fully capture. Some audiences began wondering whether the public nature of this update was itself a form of processing, a way of acknowledging out loud what's been weighing privately. The studio atmosphere on mornings like these tends to carry a particular energy. Co-presenters, crew, the rhythm of a live program, everything usually moves forward with purpose and pace. But there are moments where that momentum naturally stills, where the room seems to pause around a particular sentence, and viewers watching from home often feel that stillness even through a screen. Many described exactly that sensation when responding to this segment, a sense that something real had briefly passed through the usual choreography of morning television. It also raises something worth reflecting on about how audiences relate to presenters over time. Ben Shephard has been part of British mornings long enough that many viewers carry a quiet familiarity with him, not as a celebrity in the distant sense, but almost as a presence that's become woven into everyday routine. So when he shares something like this, the response isn't idle curiosity. It's something closer to the concern you might feel for someone you've come to care about without ever having met. That parasocial warmth is one of the stranger and more touching aspects of what long-running presenters build with their audiences. And perhaps the detail that stayed with people longest wasn't even the information itself. It was the word really. Such a small word, but in context, placed in front of struggling, it did a specific kind of work. It pushed back against the idea that things were manageable or improving on schedule. It was honest without being despairing. It was a husband being truthful rather than reassuring, and there's a certain quiet courage in choosing that. While nothing has been confirmed about what comes next for Annie's recovery, there's a possibility that moments like this one, where a public figure resists the pressure to present everything as progressing well, actually do something meaningful for audiences navigating their own difficult seasons. Not because Ben's experience mirrors theirs, but because seeing honesty modeled on a platform this visible reminds people that struggle is real, that recovery is rarely linear, and that saying so out loud is not a failure. That's a lot to carry in a few honest words on a morning program. And yet somehow, it did. What did you feel when you watched this moment? Did you notice the shift in the room, the quietness in how he spoke about her? Sometimes the things that stay with us from television aren't the headlines or the interviews or the debates, they're the small unscripted seconds where something real briefly surfaces. Drop your thoughts below. Whether you've been following this story or this was the first you heard of it, what you felt while watching matters, and conversations like this one are worth having.